Hi, Jeff.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. Good to see you here.
Good to see you too.
That's great.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
How are you, Gareth? Now
I'm
I've got a number of gorgeous buildings for the background. So tell me what you think you want me to do. We've got our gorgeous school.
Yes.
Some daytime sunshine in Australia. Gorgeous nighttime in Australia.
I've always liked the nighttime shot.
It's the nighttime. All right, you got it. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, that looks great.
It looks like my fancy hat, like I'm Camilla Parker Bowles or Eugenie something, princess something with a silly hat.
Well, Annemarie, I was complimenting Jeff yesterday from the study room at Campbelltown campus there with the muscular skeletal system on the wall there. Very impressive. But a point of reference.
So on the other side of you looks like bedding, though. Is that bedding over there?
Oh yeah. So this is actually my room in Campbelltown residential, like the student residential.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm not being mean, but do you want to just tilt it a little bit away from the bedding?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, towards the
Perfect.
side.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
good.
we're all pretty used to seeing each other's bedding these days, aren't we?
That's right. The everyone's dirty laundry aired on these.
And their dogs and bloody cats and things.
Yeah. And I'm hoping my doorbell doesn't go as well, which is quite loud, and I'm not sure how to turn it off. But
I've got two golden retriever puppies that we have for my son, who for his 21st birthday present was a couple of dogs. What was I thinking? But their bark is 120 decibels.
Yeah, that's the way it is. I think, but everyone's being, I think, a little bit relaxed with it all. So
you bet.
now we've got. I'm gonna hit the broadcast button in 5 minutes' time. Hopefully, we've got Fiona and Gerald joining.
Yep, we have.
As if by magic, perfect timing. And I'm not sure in terms of attendees. We've had a significant number of registrations. What we discovered yesterday as part of this virtual fair series is that the actual turnout was a little bit lower. Oh, look at that.
I've got merch if you want me to put merch off. Yeah, no, turnout was a bit lower than you were expecting, was it?
Yeah, so look, we'll see what happens, but we're recording the session, and obviously this can then go out in our email follow-up to the offered pipeline, as well as future inquiries. So it serves as something permanent that we can use on YouTube, on our YouTube channel that will sit there. So we may also be able to play it live as a Facebook Live session later on as well. So hopefully slides-wise, all is fine there. Fiona, same set as we've used previously. I've made a few little edits. And I'm not sure, Annemarie, Fiona, how you wanted to divide up the sort of discussion of the Doctor of Medicine content in those slides. But I'll hand over to you, Annemarie, and then we'll introduce yourself, Gerald, Fiona, initially, and then perhaps I leave it up to you to commence. There's really only 6 slides, but obviously they can be elaborated on, which details the content of the 5 years of the session. Look,
our usual split, I'm happy for you to jump in, Fiona, but our usual split is that I'll run through the content side of it, and then if it's on processes and admissions and things, but we're pretty good, we can jump onto where we need to. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
And I had been, Annemarie, I think when it sort of talks about year 1 or 2, I'd been throwing to Gerald to go, oh, and Professor Munch, you've got a group, tell us what that looks like. Because it's the fun story stuff as much as the structure stuff. And of course, you'll be able to tell them what the ICM land looks like.
So towards, after we dealt with the sequence of the program itself, and feel free to, elaborate broadly on content, we'll get to the point where I'd like to introduce Jeff, and Jeff has a few slides to share, a kind of photo montage of life as a student in the medicine program, which is great. And then I'll obviously be throwing in some questions there, Jeff, for you as well. And then we'll flick back just to cover off on some of the admissions component, the entry requirements for how to apply in the sequence. But Annemarie and Fiona, obviously expecting possible questions in regard to the March 21 intake in relation to offshore students.
Yep, and that was a question that Gerald asked me, as well as to what the actual start date for the international students is, which is the week of the 8th of February. So it is very early. Yeah.
So to be onshore and here. Look, so what we've gone out to our offered students with notification about this, and it may well be that there could be some commentary around it, but hopefully all will be okay.
We find there's that small group who just keep coming back and back, hoping to get the answer that they want, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's likely a bit of
I think Fiona just circulated to me some government statement on Tuesday night about releasing restrictions, at least from a government point of view, for students to be able to return home with international students and potentially not be limited coming back in. But I'm not confident that we've got the wherewithal to say to students that you'll be able to come and go, because there's too many ducks in a row. Other countries may make border conditions that are outside of our control, and Australia could at any time overnight decide not to readmit you. So all we can do is say watch this space, I think.
That's right. Yep. Okay, so I'll just cover off on a bit of housekeeping at the start as well. Once I've introduced, I've got a couple of slides on the Western Sydney broadly, a couple of rankings for medicine as well on the various scales, and then Ed. So welcome Gerald as well. I'm not sure where we're at in terms of attendees, but as I say, we're recording, and this will be used multiple times in the future as well.
Gerald, can you remove your handbag from behind your left ear, please?
It's my home office. So. It's the Specsavers handbag for my computer class.
Excellent. We want studious looking stuff. Put a few books up there, will you? Put pharmacology for the very brainy or something.
Yes, and put the glasses on.
You put the glasses on.
All right. Okay, so I'm about to hit broadcast, if that's okay with everyone. 3.
There you go, Gerald. Pop down in your seat. 3, 2, 1. Come on. Go. Thank you. Perfect.
All right. I'm going to start now and welcome the audience we have. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Western Sydney University and our international virtual fair featuring today our School of Medicine coming to you from our campus at Campbelltown here in Sydney. So welcome, everybody. Good to have you with us. Greetings to you, prospective students, future students from all over the world, their families, and of course, our educational agents who are also working with our students to work their applications through and obtain the visas. So welcome, everybody. Good to have you here. My name's Gareth Lewis. I work at the international office, looking after our promotions and our work in promoting all programs for the university. I have with me today some of our team from the School of Medicine, including Professor Annemarie Hennessy, our Dean, Fiona Pacey, our school manager, and Gerald Wench, one of our professors of pharmacology. And we're also very pleased to have with us one of our current international students, Jeff Wong, ultimately soon to be Dr. Jeff Wong in the coming years, I hope, who's with us today to share his experiences of his time so far at Western Sydney University. So what I'd like to do is just commence. Many of you have information about Western Sydney. Some of you have already applied and received offers. Education agents, you may also have some information about our university already. But I'd just like to share screen just for a moment to discuss a little bit about Western Sydney University so you can get a little bit of an understanding. I will say though, just at the start, we have, and many of you will be used to the Zoom format now, our Q&A function. So should you have any questions that crop up during the session, please pop them into the Q&A box that exists there in the toolbar. We also have a chat room. It's probably a little bit easier though for me to manage the session if you put the questions in the Q&A. But any that come up during the time we're speaking, please feel free to post those questions there. And by the way, we're recording the session. This will go out on YouTube in a few days' time, and we'll be also sending all of the registrants and participants today a PDF of the slides that I'm sharing with you. Just very briefly on Western Sydney, many of you already have this information. We're a young university, but a university that is growing rapidly and gaining very strong recognition and reputation internationally, offering a whole range, comprehensive range of programs to just under 50,000 students, of which our international cohort constitutes roughly 14%. And we're in the top 2% of universities worldwide on the ranking scales. Some of this is listed here. I won't go into too much detail, but you can see as a university under 50 years old, we rate very highly globally in the world, at now, according to Times Higher Education, ranked 36 in the world. We're also doing very well indeed in terms of our impact rankings against the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, achieving a very high 3rd place in the entire world for our ranking measured against those Sustainable Development Goals. Times Higher Education, broadly, some of the information there, but I did want to mention against Times Higher Education, our top 300 position in terms of clinical, preclinical health in those rankings. QS also rank us in the top 300 for medicine globally. And on our academic ranking of world universities from the Shanghai, we're also top 300 in clinical medicine. A very positive achievement, and one obtained through our teaching, our excellence in research in the medicine field, and of course, our quality program as well. So the Doctor of Medicine degree, what I'd like to do is hand over to our team, academic team from the school, to discuss the program with you. And what I'll do at the start is hand over to our Dean, Professor Annemarie Hennessy. Annemarie.
Annemarie, you're on mute.
I think, yeah, Annemarie.
Apologies. Hi, everybody. It's Annemarie Hennessy. I thought I'd just start by telling you that I'm a renal physician, which is a kidney specialist, and I work in the region. So I've got a deep understanding of the local needs of the community in Sydney, and I love working at this university. Our particular medical school is designed for you to come out of school into medicine. So there are some parts of the world where that's not possible, but in Australia it is. And we think that there's an advantage to that for those of you who've worked hard and know clearly what you want to do. When you come to university, you come straight into the medical course. At the end of 5 years, that you would leave with an MD, and that consists of 3 years of clinical medicine and basic sciences with introductions to anatomy, pharmacology, physiology, molecular medicine, population health, and then you do a strong immersion clinical experiences for 3 years in our hospital and community learning systems, and graduate ready to practice as a junior doctor. Most of the world call that position an internship, and that provides a stepping stone for you to do postgraduate training in any type of medical field that you would choose. Brain surgery, orthopedic surgery, the kind of work that I do in chronic disease management, working with pregnant women, pediatrics, but also an opportunity to be the disease warriors that we've seen around the world in our population health teams, who've saved hundreds of thousands of people from the death of coronavirus in the last 9 months as we've watched that journey unfold around the world. So just moving to the next slide, I'll just tell you a little bit about the first and second year of the course, and then we might let Jeff Wong, our student, tell you a little bit about his experience, just to mix it up. So we adopt a problem-based learning approach. So this is adult learning by you about your thoughts when you're confronted with what might be a medical problem that needs to be solved. Let me work through an example of what that kind of learning means. Say you're studying a child with a broken arm. You would have to think about the problem of a broken arm. What are the bones? How does that work in terms of the muscles of the arm? What does that mean in terms of the structure and of function of the arm? But we would also think about, what does pain mean? Why is it painful? And how do we unpack the concepts of pain? But we would also expect you to think about, what is it that broke that child's arm? And is there a domestic violence situation, an unsupervised situation, or what kind of trauma has been involved in that circumstance? So that puts a circumstance and context around the problem that you're solving. And we know that in medical training, that kind of comprehensive thinking leads to a much more integrated approach to solving the problems of the patients that you would be seeing, looking after them in your journey as a practicing doctor. The course has lectures embedded in it, although in a very practical way. We used a blended approach to lectures where material is provided and discussions with the various lecturers or tutorials or tutors. We have practical hands-on training in communication skills, physiology, and particularly in anatomy. But we also emphasise the important role of developing the professional identity as a future young doctor. And we take that kind of approach to safety and quality and understanding the cultural background of the people that we meet and look after as being critical to our professional development. In Western Sydney, there are 160 nationalities represented in our population. So for international students particularly, it's a very relevant populations to lots of the places that you might be coming from as you come to learn and work with us. So at the clinical school components of that, we'll show you a map of that in a moment. You get to see the face of medicine as it's practiced in our hospitals and in the broader community in primary care, as well as the theoretical learning that I've described. Jeff, do you want to reflect on those early years of the course?
Yep. I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Jeff, and I'm a second-year medical student. Currently studying at Western Sydney University. So I've been through all these components, as our dean has described, and I think it's a very well-rounded course. It doesn't really just teach you all the sciencey bits about like medicine, but it also teaches you how to be a great doctor, how to communicate with patients, how to empathize with people. And you kind of treat health as not in like an individual level, but you kind of like broaden your horizon to like the whole population. So I think it's a very great course. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I got a lovely example recently. The students ended up sitting with the patient and their family while I went to do a test on their urine. There you go. And when I came back, the students quietly said to me that in discussion, when everyone relaxed a bit more, they discovered that the person was bleeding. Then that bleeding problem hadn't been disclosed to me, but we pursued that and we found a very early cancer that was treated and the patient was cured. And that was achieved by a first-year medical student in their first week, just taking the time to sit and listen to a patient's journey. So I love having the students around that environment because it enriches the experience for the patients, and it certainly enriches the experience for students in the early part of their training. What a powerful way to see what your journey is going to be like in this life, hey? So I love that example, and I have many of those. So we might move to the next slide, just indicate to you when we talk about the difference between campus learning and clinical school learning. We have got world-class facilities. I accredit medical schools all around the planet, and I tell you, you won't see anything that looks quite like what we've got for you here. Behind me is the nighttime view of the student learning bunker at the back of the building. We have barbecues and parties, and we will be having COVID-related teamwork out there in the fresh air. But each of those little wooden houses that you can see is like a tree house where you sit and learn with your groups, the anatomy lab sitting in behind. On your slide here, you can see the front of that building that has research laboratories, lecture theatres, and open learning space. It's an incredibly inclusive and friendly space with some sculptures out the front. And the bottom slide there are our two principal clinical schools. The first one there is at Macarthur, which is at Campbelltown in southwestern Sydney. The other one at Blacktown in northwestern Sydney, but state-of-the-art buildings with libraries, lecture theatres, learning spaces, gathering spaces, and the student common room we can see right there. In fact, I think Jeff's looking at me out of the window of that common room there in the picture. And those bridges connect you directly to the hospitals with the hundreds of patients and staff that you'll be working with, nurses, allied health, physiotherapists, and the doctors who will be training you. So thank you. The next slide takes us to a bit of detail about what's in those year 3, 4, and 5 of the course. So that includes some online learning, which is multi-themed, access to things like critical care, which we've learned a lot about in COVID, haven't we? How do we manage someone who can't breathe? I must admit, Donald Trump didn't look to me like he was breathing very well the other day when he came out. And how do you recognise somebody who's having breathing difficulty? I played that film several times to show my family exactly how much breathing difficulty he was having. And that's what critical care is all about, is understanding when someone's airway or heart is compromised in a way that is immediately dangerous to their life. We do medicine and surgery. Broadly speaking, that includes operating on things, giving medication for things, and understanding, as Jeff beautifully described to you, a holistic approach to the family, the patient, their family, and their community. And we also send our doctors off to do some stuff out in the community without doctors, to understand what it might be like to be at a women's shelter, what it might be like to live with cerebral palsy, what it might be like to be deaf or blind and living in a community and accessing healthcare in that way. So learning from the community partners, not just from the doctors who are practicing. In Year 4, which is the next slide, we undertake detailed learning in women's health or obstetrics, in paediatrics, in cancer. Also, we do some online learning and we learn some psychiatry or mental health. Our particular course requires you to deliver babies. Not all medical courses do, but we think there's a rite of passage in being able to put your hands on and assist a family with the birth of their baby. I still cry every time I see a baby being born. It's the most wonderful part of my day. I don't cry often, by the way, but yes, I think it's exciting to see babies coming in. In Year 5, we go back to more intensive hospital and community-based training. We're also ready to help out areas of Indigenous health and general practice in a very practical, hands-on way. And this year for COVID, we were able to create a stream where our medical students were paid to assist the hospitals where we had staff shortages because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that helped students with an income stream, but also is getting them ready for their graduate year as interns next year. So we'll move on now to student support services, and I'll again hand over to Fiona Pacey to give you a bit of an idea about the university support mechanisms.
And so I guess this is a lovely slide that just talks about some of the things that the university offers, but also that we know that the students value. And what's been quite interesting this year is looking at ways that we've moved some of these activities online so that the students who aren't necessarily able to physically come together at different points of time have still been able to access these services. So things like the peer-assisted study sessions moved online, like some of the tutorial activities. The welfare services, our students have been able to get support through the counselling service at all times. Our chaplaincy service has been doing remote cooking classes. What they used to do is do some sessions live, but they've been doing cooking sessions by Zoom at the moment, which has been fantastic. So again, there's some structural support elements. The other thing I would say from the School of Medicine perspective is that there is a cohort of international students. It's not big, it's not small, it's a good size. And we have academics. Professor Munch is the student support coordinator for the pre-clinical years and one of the clinicians for the clinical years, but also the students who are in the years above you, like Jeff would be, also are able to provide you with advice and encouragement throughout the process. So Gareth, I think the next ones are yours, or?
Yep. Thank you, Fiona. And I think what I wanted to do was discuss a little bit about the campus location. And I know perhaps Gerald, Fiona, Annemarie, and Jeff, you may have some further commentary on this. But just to clarify to our international audience who are outside Sydney, most likely, and perhaps not too familiar with the geography of our city, I just wanted to share a little bit of information with you about where our campus is situated, where Campbelltown is for our School of Medicine in relation to the city centre and a couple of other places. You can see circled here, Campbelltown City. This is where the School of Medicine locates, and the beautiful buildings that sit behind Annemarie right now in the background are located. And of course, actually one of the teaching hospitals at Macarthur. The Sydney City Centre is here. And roughly speaking, and Jeff can attest to this with the train ride in, it's approximately an hour away from the CBD, Sydney CBD. So it's a little bit outside the sort of central conurbation of Sydney, but indeed is probably at a very good distance to keep you away from all of those distractions and diversions that might take you away from hard study, which is one of the key ingredients of success on the medicine program. So, but of course, everything's, when you do allow yourself that opportunity for relaxation and enjoyment, if you do wish to head into the city and have a look around, it's only a stone's throw away. Those of you arriving into Australia we hope, the near future, you'll be arriving here at our airport in Sydney. So for families, parents watching, that's the location there of the airport coming through. One key ingredient, of course, in your time studying is not only the academic component, but also the living and the accommodation component. And at Campbelltown, I've got a little bit of imagery here of some of the accommodation, and I'm going to ask Jeff to discuss this in a little bit detail, as he is one of our current residents at the Western Sydney University Village in Campbelltown, which is on campus. I think just a short 5-minute walk away from the building, the School of Medicine, and provides for you a good level of service and accommodation whilst you're studying. This is just a little picture at some of the different accommodation options that we have in terms of share house, studio apartments, and various options for you, and the layout, and of course some of the pricing, which I have to say, compared to many other universities in Australia, is a fairly reasonable and competitive cost structure. And again, as Annemarie earlier pointed out, you've got the image there of our campus building. Jeff, I might, I'm not sure, Fiona, Annemarie, if you had any further comments, or Gerald, on the location and the accommodation.
Yes. Gareth, I have one additional, the shuttle bus we should mention. Yeah, do you want us to explain what a shuttle bus is, or shall I?
Well, I was wondering, perhaps Gerald will turn to Jeff, because he's probably one of the principal users of the shuttle bus service.
No, actually, so I only live about 1 minute away from Annemarie, so she can actually see my carport from her office. No? Right. But the shuttle bus doesn't go outside the university. But there's a free shuttle bus going every 15 minutes from the university, from the accommodation to the medical school, and then to the teaching hospital. And by the way, it stops at the major shopping center, which is 2 stories and about 1 kilometer long. So even COVID safe with a mask, it's a beautiful place to shop while you're walking from the hospital to the university, or if you are busy, you can use the free shuttle bus. And there's an app which actually tells you exactly where each bus is, and then you can see that it's coming in 2 minutes or 4 minutes. And for the students, many students, then after they have started using the village, find friends, find a place to live, and then the prices are even cheaper, and you can have your own 4-bedroom house somewhere between the hospital and the university for even a reasonable rent of $100 a week per 3 people, 300. So that's it's much cheaper than living under the harbour bridge.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. And perhaps we take this opportunity, Jeff, to turn to you and to discuss a little bit more about your time in Sydney, and as it's been now coming towards the end of year 2 of your study. So perhaps I'm gonna stop share here, and maybe Jeff, just turning to you. I know you've prepared a few slides that kind of typify and summarize a little bit about your life in Sydney, but maybe just to get started, I'll ask you what was a little bit about your background, where you're from, which country you're from, and why in the end you chose to opt for the medicine program at Western Sydney. Maybe we start there.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Hong Kong. So it's as you all might see what's happening in Hong Kong, you might know the city, like this small city already. So yeah, I chose this course at Western Sydney because I was really attracted to the very strong clinical component of the course. Like I think from first year onwards, you have like placements every week to the hospital, and it's very different from other universities because I think it's better this way because it sort of gives you this sort of target or goal. When you see like clinicians, when they come in and teach you, you see them, I'm going to be like them one day. So it serves as a very good motivation. And also I think Western Sydney is like a region that's always, currently being, in constant development, and people are moving in from all different parts of the world. So I think that's a very exciting learning experience as well.
Sure, that's great to hear. Yeah, And I guess your academic background, did you do A-level or was it Hong Kong high school qualification, DSC?
Yep. So I did the international baccalaureate. So it's
Yeah.
IB curriculum. So I went to international school in Hong Kong. And then, so after 6 years in high school, I then came to Western Sydney University to,
Excellent. So you've got a few slides here, and I'd like you to talk us through them because there's some great photography in there. And I think, we've got that kind of combination of the aspects of academic life, but also of your own social life as well, and some of the experiences you've had whilst here in Sydney.
Yep. So, okay. So these slides are some photographs that I've compiled throughout my 2 years in Western Sydney University. So I've divided this presentation into 3 components. So it's the study life, my life in Sydney, as well as my student residential life, as I'm a resident at the student accommodation. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So, so medical school. So these are 2 photos that I have taken from our PBL tutorials, both in first year and also in second year.
And PBL, sorry, Jeff?
Yeah, PBL. So it's a problem-based learning, as Professor Hennessy has just talked about just now at the introduction. So it's so it's basically where you get given a case and you become a doctor with a group of friends. Like you sort of learn how to be able to clinical reason, find out like possible diagnoses, and that's the nature of the tutorial. So first year tutorial, I remember, was really, really exciting and a very fun experience. You get to, because every semester you sort of change around and you meet different people in your cohort. So you, at the end of the year, you sort of meet, I think, everyone in your cohort already. So it's really easy to make friends through these tutorials. And this gentleman right here in the middle, in the center, he's actually our tutor for our PBL tutorial. He doesn't come across to me as very, being like a senior person in the School of Medicine, but he's really just a friend. Like he's a very genuine person as well. So it's a very fun,
approachable and easy to talk to.
Easy to talk to. Yeah, and you can approach him for anything that you might want to talk about. Like even if you're very stressed, you can approach him and say, "I'm very stressed. Do you have anything?" So like when you want someone to chat with. And this is second year, and of course, due to the pandemic, everything is moved online. So this is a photo of me doing the tutorial in my room. Of course, I wasn't used to it at the start, but the School of Medicine was very, very willing to listen to our, concerns and maybe suggestions on how to improve the online experience. And so so it was a very, I think there aren't many sort of obstacles to learning. I think I found it pretty much the same. You do the same thing as face-to-face sessions.
Yeah, and that's using the same platform as we're on now on Zoom. Is that correct?
Yeah, on Zoom.
Yeah.
But Jeff, my PBL group, and for the students, you can actually get a senior professor in PBL group. So sometimes it's a rather grandpa than a young friend, but still, it can be fun. What did you find difficult at the beginning doing it online?
Yeah, because I personally enjoy, interacting with people, like, actually seeing them, seeing to their live reactions when I, do my presentations during the tutorial, and you get to sort of sometimes debate, like, because you sort of have conflicting ideas and stuff like that. And so that component was lacking at the start, and that was kind of something that I wasn't used to. But it's something that you get used to as you move along. So it's nothing too serious, or no big deal. Yeah.
So my students who don't live on campus, they love the idea to wake up 5 minutes before the PBL and still be on time.
Yeah, so that's one of the perks of everything being moved online. So I wake up, half an hour before the tutorial just to get breakfast. And yeah, it's a very nice advantage. Okay.
All right.
So so second slide. Yep. So this is the clinical skills tutorial that you get to carry out. Learn about in second year. You don't get this in first year, but it's sort of in second year to prepare you to go into your clinical years, which is in year 3 where you start to work in the hospital. So this is, the first photo is me doing a skill called intubation, where you insert a tube into the patient's throat and you kind of pump air into it when, And then you have the second photo is the intravenous cannulation, where you get access to the patient's venous system. And you sort of, I think this was a very, as you might be able to imagine, it's a very exciting experience. You get to learn about, you get to get your hands on very new facilities that they have at the clinical school. Since we're relatively a new medical school, so we get, very new equipment and stuff like that. And so that was very exciting. Yeah. And this is my study group in first year. And this is, so it's a very, so in medicine, you might know teamwork is very important, and these sorts of experiences that you have with your friends sort of train you to become more, be able to work in a team. And so they almost become your teammates, and because we're all pursuing that goal to, pass the year. So we give each other support, resources, and they become your family here in Sydney, because especially it's very hard at the start to, live so far away from your family. So it's good to always have a group of friends around you.
Are these friends, Jeff? Are these also fellow Doctor of Medicine students?
They all are. So and then this is a photo of us eating some instant noodles after a long study session. So it's it was, I think it was 2 a.m. at night.
Instant noodles are your friend. That's that's good.
I have been invited to the occasional nosh up, but I haven't in COVID years, so I'm missing that myself, Jeff.
Yeah. So that was in first year. We weren't having any social distancing because that was in first year. Okay. So free ice cream on campus. That's that was actually my best experience on campus. Because that day I remember I had 3 lectures in a row and was very, very exhausted by the end of the day. And then when I was walking back to my accommodation, I came across this ice cream van, and they were giving out free ice cream. So it was quite a interesting energy boost for me.
Very good.
So this is Med Camp. So it's a medical school tradition. You get it. I think every medical school in Australia has this tradition. It's organized by the Medical Society of our university. And it's a great experience because you get to meet different people during the camp. And I certainly did make a few new friends during the camp. Okay.
Was there alcohol? Were there alcoholic beverages involved?
Nope. That was this friend on the left, he was just holding a cup of orange juice.
That's King. That's what.
That's King. Yeah. He's also from Hong Kong as well. So.
Yes.
Very good.
And moving on to my life in Sydney. So just some photographs of us exploring the different parts of Sydney.
Which beach?
This is Bondi Beach.
Bondi, the famous Bondi Beach.
The famous Bondi Beach. You really can't miss out on the beaches in Australia because they're just
very nice,
beautiful, gorgeous. Coming from Hong Kong, we don't really get these beaches. Living in a concrete jungle in Hong Kong, it's just very nice to be able to get into contact with nature again. And so these are all so there are all international students as well. So we have Sri Lankans, Koreans, people from Hong Kong, Malaysia, and and you just get to learn about their culture as well. So I think that's aside from the medical curriculum, that's something a valuable experience as well, learning experience.
Very nice.
and this is Blue Mountains. As I said, like the scenery is just you can't compete with it. I don't think anywhere in the world can compete with the scenery. Yeah.
So that's it's about an hour from Campbelltown as well. An hour and a half, 2 hours to get up
Yeah,
there.
so an hour and 45 by car. So it's still doable.
Very nice.
Yeah, and this was a group of friends, and there are some year ones in this group as well. And so, as I said, the one I think special, unique aspect of our school is that I find it very nice that seniors, like year 3 or year 2, year 5s even, they don't really have like sort of I'm senior, you have to respect me, like you have to speak in a certain so we all mingle around. I think that's a very great experience.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously you can quiz them about their experiences in the semester of study that you're doing, right?
Yeah. So they're very happy to help, and I think that's a very strong point of our school. And so living in Campbelltown, it's actually quite. So a trip to Canberra is actually not too far. So from Sydney to Canberra, that would be a very long bus ride. But then if you start from Campbelltown, it's actually it's around a 2 hours bus ride. And so I took this opportunity to visit my high school friend. So he also went to a high school in Hong Kong, and he's currently at ANU.
So he chose a different university.
He chose a different university. Yeah. And then so it was so that's why being an international student, it puts you into a position of being a tourist. Like once you're having holidays, you get to like experience different parts of Australia, and so I think that's a very great experience as well.
Fantastic. Yeah,
and then Sydney CBD, you have the Harbour Bridge, and some year 1 friends as well, first year friends. And this is a event in Campbelltown. It's during the winter season, and I think so. Gareth has said that maybe Campbelltown is not as vibrant as like the CBD area, but you do occasionally get these sort of festivals, and it gives you an opportunity to relax. And
very nice.
And so this is moving on to residential life. The living environment is just great. It definitely did take some time for me to get used to it because it was quite a little bit isolated, but as you said, it's if you look on the flip side, it's actually a great advantage. Like you sort of can able to just focus on your studies and away from all the distractions in the city. So it's a very quiet environment as well. So you won't get people like partying every Friday. And so it's very just great for being able to study. And and so a lot of nature. So the birds occasionally come to your window and say hello to you. So that's a very nice experience as well. And so the photo on the left is actually some friends that came to surprise me for my birthday. So you can see the birthday cake in the middle. And so living on res has this sort of benefit because you're always having friends around you to support you. So they become your second family, as I said.
Yeah, and I guess, Jeff, as well, they're doing the same course. You can share your woes, your troubles, your questions, and of course, a problem shared, problem halved, right?
Yeah, and it's not just people from my course even. You get to meet people from other courses, even people doing PhDs, and so you sort of get a lot of different information from different people, and that's a great learning experience too.
Yeah.
And of course, the residential organizes a lot of events for us to connect with friends, and this was taken from a treasure hunt event at residential. And don't think of for a second seeing emergency contact point means that it's a very dangerous area to live in. In fact, it's a direct opposite. It's a very safe living environment. I think rarely, no one has really touched that emergency contact point because we get campus security patrolling our area very frequently. So it's a safe environment to live in as well.
Jem, can you also? Oh, you're cooking. Okay, I'm stopping.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cooking. It's a new skill that I taught myself. My mom used to always cook for me back home, and I was just a very spoiled kid. But after moving to Australia, you sort of learn these skills to become, independent and be more mature, and you take care of yourself. And it's so I really encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and come abroad and study abroad. Yeah.
So Jeff, did you from cooking? No?
Yeah.
Did you find enough shops which have Asian cuisine and for other students halal? So is it multicultural enough to buy everything?
Yeah. So as Professor Hennessy has said, it's a very multicultural society. So there's different suburbs, and even in Campbelltown, there's a variety of different cultural foods. So I can, for example, my friends from Malaysia, they can find Malaysian food even at the shopping mall that's very close by to our university. I can find Chinese food there. My Japanese friends can find Japanese food. So it's very easy to find your cultural food when you're homesick. Yeah. So and that's everything from me. And so looking forward to seeing you on campus one day.
Jeff, thank you very much for that. That was a great little snapshot of the real life of an international student at Western Sydney in the medicine program. And there may be some questions for you that come up from our audience. I just wanted to quickly dive back into our slides just to cover off on a couple of items around entry requirements now. So I can see some of you have posed some questions in the Q&A function, and it may be that in the slides that we go through now that some of those questions will be covered. But I think just to dive straight in, it's a bit of a detailed slide, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot on the entry requirements for those listening today who haven't applied yet, who are unaware of the requirements that we ask for at Western Sydney. I just wanted to share with you some of the key things here. So in terms of your high school qualification, I've listed here A-levels and IB as they're fairly generic and widespread qualifications globally. So as an international student, we'd be requiring an A-star and 2 A's from A-level. And of course, IB diploma is a 36 point score there as a minimum cutoff point in order to satisfy requirements. Under the Australian model, it's an ATAR 93.5 cutoff minimum. Some students apply though when they've partially completed a bachelor or indeed have completed a bachelor originally. And you can see the GPA scales that we're seeking there for students based on various points of your bachelor completion. On top of that, the other element, oh yeah, please.
I just might make a comment just because it responds to the questions, that although those are advertised cutoffs, the reality is of competitive medicine that the scores are generally above those. So I know there's some questions there about at 36 or at 34 above. Generally, there's a pretty competitive programs to get into. I just wanted to add that point.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We do also seek Icesat, and it is another component, the test you have to undertake and submit. The score from that. Typically, we are seeking a fairly strong score in that program as well. We focus principally on your high school or bachelor, partially completed bachelor or completed bachelor GPA. That forms the basis, the principal basis of the academic standard required, but ISAT is also reviewed. And then of course, English, there is a requirement there for Ielts, a current academic Ielts score with no less than 7.0 in each band. So as a key requirement. Other elements here, fees for 2021 currently sit per year at $69,010. We do have a fairly large quota. The intake is March the 1st next year. However, we do require students, Fiona, to clarify the dates, students are required to be in Australia and available for the orientation program. You had some information just on the dates for that.
Yes, so the International Student Orientation Week is scheduled for the week of the 8th of February. And then the standard classes for all students start the following week.
Sure. So currently,
and just to add that that's as much about not just orientation, which tends to imply where's the buildings. This is about the things that Jeff showed you. You study in groups, you do problem learning, and if you behind the 8 ball and were to join those groups and that approach weeks late, it's impossible to keep up or catch up. So it's that building the camaraderie and the learning environment that happens really from the first moment that you walk in the door. Thanks.
And one of the things that we did last year, so I think Jeff would have been in the first cohort that did this, as I understand it, was actually go down to one of the beaches, not Bondi, a smaller, less busy one, and have a session with the lifeguards to understand what all of the flags and other signs mean, but also so that you can go to the beach safely and have a sense of that, but also it gives you a sense of why skin cancer might be a topic that you learn quite a lot of in a medical program in Australia, and perhaps not so much in other places because of the amount of time Australians may spend outside at the beach.
We also had a program with the police. So the police consultancy officer came, and sometimes the police is not always the friendliest, no? In some places, no? Jeff maybe in Hong Kong these days, no? And in no? And also with student services, and the health insurance company told you exactly what the regulations and the claiming process were. So this is actually a really important part of your education.
Yeah. So and just to emphasize the comments there from our academic team, this is one of the reasons it is critical that we have our students with us at the beginning of February, face-to-face, in a COVID-safe environment, of course, as our teaching will be, any face-to-face components. And this is one of the critical things for our medicine program, and it's very important that all course participants are able to be with us at the beginning of February. So we are currently only going to be offering places to students that are already in Australia at the moment, because currently the borders are closed. This is a very important matter, and although there are moves to potentially have and facilitate international students coming to Australia, this is not confirmed, and we are not in a position or comfortable in a position to be taking and accepting offers from or taking acceptances, should I say, from students who are currently overseas. So if you are in Australia, and I know a number of our offered students are already here, then that will be okay. If you're currently offshore, you will potentially already have received communication from our admissions unit about deferring your offer for options for 2022 intake. So I just wanted to make that clear for our pipeline of students now. I'm sure there will be further questions about that. And any questions you do have, you should certainly refer back to admissions, or you're more than welcome to contact me as well. And I'll put my email address in the chat box for everyone to see. I did want to talk, just before we come to the questions, in terms of application procedures. If you haven't already applied, and if you are in Australia, or if you're considering an application to our program for the 2022 intake, when we suspect the borders will be operational again and open, it's important to apply either directly or via your education agent consultant on that link that I've listed there. And by the way, I'll be sharing these slides with you. What we need to see, of course, are your official high school qualification grades. If you have those grades available now, we can potentially make a provisional offer. Provisional and conditional on you also obviously satisfying the English requirement, and of course the Icesat test document as well that we need to see. Given those are all satisfactory, an unconditional offer can be made, and then you're in a position to accept that offer, where we require the first semester fee to satisfy the acceptance. Then we issue you the document, the confirmation of enrollment that you would use to apply for your student visa. March 21 is the next intake, as I've mentioned, for those international students who are currently based already here in Australia. And for those for 2022, that's open, of course, to all students. There are a few questions that have come in the Q&A box, and I think we should address those. I can see one from anonymous attendee. Are there any scholarships available for international students? As I've shown, the fee structure for medicine is one of the more expensive undertakings as a student, for obvious reasons. The pricing that Western Sydney offers is comparatively reasonable when considering similar programs offered by other universities in Australia. But unfortunately, we're not offering any scholarships for international students for this particular program. It's a quoted program. I know there are other questions referring to our quota here. We typically allow in a rather large cohort of internationals. 32 students is the quoted amount. We have many places left currently at the moment for the 2021 intake, and of course a full contingent of quoted places available for 2022. So with that quota though, and the demand, there is a very significant demand for places on this program. We're not offering students any international scholarships currently. Haybean Park, has recruitment been finalized? I think by that question you're referring to, are the places full for 2021? And no, they're not, and there are many places still available. For one of our Indian applicants, what is the requirement for Indian Cbse? What we require is an equivalent score that matches the Australian ATAR of 93.5, and that is the cutoff. So what we do is refer to our guide of equivalence. And for students certainly on Indian Cbse, we would be looking for a very, very elevated grade, and certainly within the 90-95 bracket for consideration. So if you are scoring towards that, Cbse is recognized. We would need to see a very, very high elevated score that paralleled with our ATAR of 93.5 as a minimum cutoff. So Ros,
I'll take the next question,
yes,
if that's okay, just
please,
to say that given that we have no idea what the circumstances would be next year, if you did start just the online components that Jeff showed you and you weren't able to continue with the embedded clinical training, you couldn't do first year medicine, and we're not prepared to offer a sub-component of the course that would lead you nowhere. So it is true that if you're not here, in fact, by the 8th of February, get a couple of days leeway, sure, but if you're not here to be able to get ready and settled and ready to do this very, very interpersonal type of training, then we can't take you into first year.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think there's it's our sort of ethical responsibility to not ask you to pay a significant amount of money for a course that you might not be able to pathway through on. So in your best interests, we feel it more appropriate, given the uncertain nature of the circumstances in which we exist, to offer students only for the 2022 intake, where we feel that it's likely more there will be a situation where the borders are open. Anonymous attendee, I saw an article saying that the senior state government minister said the border might be open by the end of this year. So what will happen to students who defer to 2022 if the border opens before February? Fiona, you've mentioned to answer that question.
Yes, I've been going through and doing that for all of them. So
okay,
you caught me on that one. I guess at this juncture, and Gareth can fill you in further here, there's no immediate advice about the borders opening for international students or more broadly. At the moment, there's a cap on the number of Australian residents and citizens who are returning back to Australia. So it's a little, so as the time progresses, we're in October now, it becomes more hesitant as to whether that would happen. But I guess, Gareth, in terms of what the university overall's approach to that might be?
Yeah, look, as the statement suggests, or the question suggests, that the state government minister, and that's only the state minister, not the federal minister, said the border might be open, and this is the situation under which we exist. We cannot. There are no guarantees, and without those guarantees, we feel very, very reluctant to move forward with offering students places, and therefore we would prefer, if you are currently offshore, to defer your studies to 2022, when we're going to be in a much stronger position to guarantee that you will be able to arrive in the February, and you will be able to attend those critical face-to-face components of the course. Any borders that do open, and I will say this, and I am aware of the discussions that are going on currently with the state government in New South Wales and the university sector about organising potential safe corridor. Any options for international students to arrive will be probably done on a pilot scheme, very small scale, and students may only be able to participate in that safe corridor program if they're from a select small group of international countries. And again, we don't know what that is and what that might mean for you as an applicant from one of those countries that might not be allowed to participate in that program. So you can understand our being quite hesitant to make any commitments for offshore students for the 2021 intake at the moment. And so I hope that answers your question. We do look forward, obviously, in 2021 to a position at some point during the year where the borders are more open broadly, and the international students will be able to arrive here.
I have one question, sort of maybe for speaking for the student. If a travel bubble opens, would you then contact those students in those selected countries by email, telling them this is the time now before the bubble closes again?
Yeah, I suspect that these bubbles are going to be a little way off yet. Even with New Zealand, Gerald, I understand there's discussion currently, but I don't foresee that really coming to fruition anytime soon. And even if we were looking at December, where they did potentially open something, there are visas to apply for. There's a whole process that needs to be undertaken. And with the backlogs that are going on with the visa posts and the influx of visa applications, it may also take some time for that visa to be processed. And again, the student might miss out on the opportunity to arrive here. So I think it's prudent of the school and the university to take a very careful approach here. So we sit in the wait and see, and if there are potentially opportunities for this, then we can reconsider. But right now, we've taken this decision to not offer students for 2021 who are offshore. So another question from an attendee. International students who have done 3 years of a bachelor's degree in Australia, are they still required to take Ielts? My understanding is yes, they are. Even if you have successfully completed a bachelor's degree here on shore, in order to satisfy the requirements for the program, we are seeking students to have Ielts scores of 7.0 in each subskill. Fiona, if I'm not mistaken, that's the case.
Oh, look, I can answer that too. It's partly driven by the health department, who make a requirement around English standard. It's hard enough when you're doing fun things if English is not your first language, but when you're dealing with frightened and sick people, then having an English standard is critical for the care of the patients that we look after.
Thanks, Annemarie. Orla, thank you for your question on accommodation. When will we know the prices for 2021? You can actually look online, Orla, if you go onto our main website. What I might be able to do is forward out in our communication to all of the registrants today in the session a link to our campus living villages. If you go onto our website, put in the search function accommodation, you should be able to find reference to the Campbelltown campus and have a look. Again, reasonably priced. It's usually ranges. I'm not sure, Jeff, what are the rates that you're paying? Do you know for the accommodation at Campbelltown right now?
So it's around, so I think 400 something, a fortnight, I think. So it's 200 something per week.
Around 200 Australian dollars per week. Yeah, you can check on the website and have a little look, and I'll make sure in our follow-up email to you that contains these slides that you've got the link to the Campus Living Village for you. Another question, is there a July 2021 intake? Unfortunately not, Anil. Yes, we only have one intake a year. It's a very, very structured program that we need to commence in March only. The deadline.
Just answer questions around transfer, Gareth, just to jump in.
Please.
Although we have a transfer pathway under exceptional circumstances, it's almost impossible to do that because all medical programs are different. So if you're currently in a medical place, it's highly likely, given what Jeff has said to you before about the nature of integrated learning, that there would be significant gaps in the year or two that you might have done elsewhere before you come to us. And that integrated continuous learning is a critical part. And it's almost impossible mostly to tear apart the program and pick the bits you do or don't need, even in the latter years of the course. So I don't think we've had a successful transfer student in the course in the last 10 years. So it's not a pathway that works. Now, the problem with those, with transfers is that it's a very rare event, so a vacancy doesn't become available anyway because of the nature of how loaded these programs are. So it would need both the circumstances to be extraordinary and for there to be a vacancy, and that doesn't happen. So we'll take that as read for all the remaining questions about transfer. Questions there about Ielts standards. The standard is the standard, guys. That is the standard. There's no point in asking us if you can trade off speaking for writing. Both skills are essential, and that standard has been set largely by government, and we meet that standard. We do understand that you would be coming to live and learn in English for the 5 years of the course, and there is some negotiation going on with government in Australia about our capacity to allow you to use that as time to emerge with English skills. So just watch the website, and any changes will be communicated to you via the website. Yep.
Gareth, can you tell us, the student, a bit more about alternative English tests they can use instead of IELTS if they have already done that?
We also accept the Pearson PTE test of English and also the TOEFL IBT testing. So details of that again are on our website, and if you go through onto the pages on international, you'll find reference to the actual specific scores that are required for those tests as well. But we use IELTS as a basis, and it's a 7.0 without any compromise on that in each band. One question, I think, Annemarie, Fiona, in terms of internships, so after the 5-year sequence, in order to fully qualify, an internship year is required. And the question here...
You're not required to graduate. So you graduate from the university with your MD medical degree. And a lot of international students elect to go home to do their internship, so they get registered at home, and a lot elect to stay here. There is no guarantee of a paid internship for international student. Having said that, it's been very common for almost all international students over many years to be employed in Australia, but it's not guaranteed. We are several positions short for next year, so next year international graduates will be placed, but there is no guarantee for what that will look like in 5 years' time. My gut feeling is, given travelling and travel restrictions, is that Australia's going to need medical graduates in 5 years, but we specifically will not provide a written guarantee.
Sure. Okay. The next question in, what should we have a look at here? If the course is deferred to March 2022, well, will that affect when I'm applying for a student visa? What will the 1 year gap have any impact? I think the best thing to do there is to write directly. I'm just going to place right now in the chat box my email address, and I think it's best that you write that question to our admissions unit, and they can talk to you a little bit more about that. It shouldn't necessarily be a problem, and that there will be, I think, an understanding from the visa post that when you are applying for your visa, that you have had to defer due to the nature of COVID. And I think the visa posts across, the Australian High Commissions and embassies and visa posts internationally are aware that some students will have been affected. So it shouldn't be a major problem, but any questions you do have specific to that, you can write to me directly. And I'll just, before we finish, put my email address in the chat box. Should we have a written Icesat exam before applying? Yes, Icesat is an important ingredient. You will need to take a test through the ACER. The details of the Icesat test you can find on the slide that I showed previously.
And at their website.
One question. I'm sort of channeling the student. Just imagine a student would finish a bachelor's degree at Western Sydney in clinical sciences or sciences in November, and can't, but is already on shore.
Yeah.
And let's say, but then travels home and then gets an offer. So we would, or gets an offer for 2022 because we're full by then. Would that gap year? How would he get a visa for a gap year?
Oh no. Well, yeah. If a student has a visa and is unable to return, then in that, if they have an offer, well, normally the previous qualification they've done, the visa would have an expiry on it for that previous qualification, and they would have to apply for a new one. So if they're unable to commence with us, then they won't be able to apply for that visa, and they would have to defer and wait. So the gap in time, they would have to evidence to the visa post what they've been doing during that year, and it would be it's not impossible for the student to secure a visa later. They would just have to document what's happened during that year. And there would be a level of understanding from the visa post if a student was in that situation, Gerald. I know we're running out of time, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but there are a couple of questions here. If I completed a Bachelor of Science degree at Western, can I apply for Doctor of Medicine? Well, yes, indeed you can. You will need, though, to satisfy the appropriate GPA requirements from your bachelor degree in order to be considered for admission. But yes, that's a possibility.
And I think Janice has got a question about whether she could transfer from a science degree into second or third year. We've already answered that question, and the answer is no, because a first year of a medical course in the olden days might have been a basic sciences course. It's now a doctor training course, and you won't have completed core elements of that in another course, and we're not prepared to graduate you with insufficient training. So no.
To undertake the full program.
Yeah.
From Charlene, will it be possible to send us a recording of the session? Yes, Charlene, it will. I will be, this session's recorded, and we'll be posting this on our YouTube page shortly. I will be downloading the recording, and it will be posted there, and this will be sent out in an email to you. The difference between...
Sorry, Gareth, it would be fair to say that any student who had been given an offer or a potential offer because of COVID-19 issues would remain at the top of the list for our offers of the year after, wouldn't be foregoing that opportunity.
Yes.
We're deeply respectful of the fact that this is beyond everyone's control, and we're doing our best to make sure no one's disadvantaged. So I'm not quite sure what Axe's question or someone's question there about what is applying to the Doctor of Medical program for 21 versus 2022. But the simple answer is you need to be here to start next year. We're not making offers this late because by the time we organise visas and things, we think it's too late to be ready to come. Unless something dramatic happens over the next weekend or two, we're sticking to the offers that will be made in the next few weeks regarding what we know will be possible next year. But if next year remains equally equal upheaval and a vaccine isn't found and we're in the same circumstances, we don't know how long this will go on for. So we're just waiting and watching, and we don't have crystal balls. So I'm sorry we can't answer your questions. Yeah. But this moment we're hoping that the world has this enough under control to have a semi-normal year in 2022, and that means you'd come at your own pace and be ready to commence your offer, your deferred offer in 2022, and it would be business as usual, but don't know, really.
Yeah.
There's also a question about someone saying, how does the university know that I'm already in Australia?
Yeah, I saw that one, Gerald, and I was just going to answer that. In the application form, you are required to specifically state where you are. It says, there is one of the questions in the application form, are you currently onshore in Australia? Please make sure you answer that question. And then we will be able to ascertain immediately. We should also be able to check if you have a current student visa, we'd be able to look you up in the system on our visa access as well to determine where you are.
We have no prerequisites. We'll teach you the chemistry and the biology that you need. So that's a simple one. And the difference between an MBBS and an MD is historical. Both of them allow you to practice as an intern and to achieve your training. It's sort of, actually the MD started in Glasgow in 400 years ago, and then it moved to an MBBS, and the Americans took over the MD. And I'm sure all of you are ringing us here from dozens and dozens of countries that all have quite a bespoke program. Generally, they're called the primary medical qualification, and the primary medical qualification allows you to practice as an intern and eventually quite quickly to be registered as a practitioner. And that is a qualification that's internationally recognised in every country on the planet. So don't worry about it. Don't sweat that stuff. We've done that for reasons of a little bit of research that's been integrated into the program. And there are, again, some historical reasons why the Australian medical schools have gone to an MD around funding models and other things. It's really an immaterial difference from a student's perspective. So,
okay.
Thanks, Gareth.
Thanks, Annemarie. So one quick question there from Habeen. When can we start enrolling? I think, Habeen, it may be the case that you actually are in Australia and looking, I think you already have an offer for next year for March 21 and you are here. When can we start enrolling in the unit and see our timetable? So in the case, Annemarie, Fiona, where we have a student who is accepted for 2021, who is in Australia, when would they be able to access that and enroll?
So the unit, not for a little while yet. At the moment, we're focusing on getting ready for Jeff's exams, and then the units.
And then celebrating Jeff's success at his exams.
Absolutely. But we can give you an idea of what the timetable looks like, because Jeff kind of talked you through that a little bit. So, and again, what a standard, we can talk about what the standard timetable looks like, which is normally you would come onto campus. Now, at the moment, this year, some of that was off-site, but students are now on-site for anatomy teaching. So those activities are generally 3 days a week, and 1 day a week you come to the clinical school, which Jeff would also have been doing throughout most of this year. So it tends to be 4 days a week in scheduled classes, and 1 day a week you might be doing some placement activity with a general practice or a community organisation, but otherwise you'll be balancing, as Jeff's photos said, between studying by yourself, studying with a group, and having some downtime.
Sounds good. Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, so but be prepared for a lot of hard work, and it's not like one of the other degrees that we might be offering at the university that has a much more relaxed timetable. Last question.
Can I just say, I know we say hard work, and I'd like Jeff to perhaps jump in here. I think it's harder work to do things that you don't want to do or that are not a good fit for you. If this is a good fit for what you want to do, look at the smile on Jeff's face when he's describing the joy of the study that we're doing and the people that we get to work with. I just think if it's the right course for you, the hard work will be a pleasure for you. And you have to be prepared to knuckle down. And that's why we take the ATAR and your work performance so seriously, not because we think it's got anything to do with smarts. It's being smart or clever or what. It's a surrogate for effort. That's the best way we've got of saying, are you prepared to knuckle down and do the work that the patients need you to do, that the community needs you to undertake, to be a professional who with good knowledge and sound and safe practice for the people that you'll be looking after. So I know it's hard work, Gareth, but it's really good fun if it's the right fit for you. Indeed. If you don't like people and you don't like talking to people and there are parts of this that are your parents' ambition, I'd be saying to you, have a think about what you're passionate about and find your place. This may or may not be it. We hope that it is, and we hope it's with us. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thanks very much, Annemarie. Just to finish off, a student asking, I got my COE for 2021 intake and I am in Australia. That's great news. You can start. Look, if you are in any doubt, I would, and if you were overseas previously when you applied, but you're now in Australia, that's great. Please write to admissions, respond to the email that came with your COE, and just let them know that you are in Australia and can start. We probably have already identified you as here already. But if you wish to just reply to that COE email that you received from us and make sure admissions know you're here. That's great. New Zealand passport holders, will I be a domestic student? Fiona,
No,
do you have the answer to that, or Annemarie?
I'm just checking because there's a difference between New Zealand citizens and permanent residents. So I'm just...
And I think we do need to say it changed in recent years, Gareth, with the changing government in Australia. So I think rather than a fixed response, all we can say is just you'll need to interrogate that yourself through the International Office with a specific request. Let's not answer that here.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, I think if you were to make an application, we would assess you and that would become evidence from the response from the admissions unit. I don't have the exact answer for that.
I think Gareth, the last answer half a year ago was you are actually an international student, but you pay the domestic fee paying student fees, which are nearly as high as the international fees.
Yeah, we would
But
have
this
to
is
clarify.
6 months old, so so you're a bit of a hybrid.
Could be.
The
All right.
email is available for you in the chat room, guys. So we've already put the numbers up. Just go to your chat room function rather than the Q&A function, and our email addresses are there for you. I'll try to answer. I get 950 emails a day, so I make no promises, but I try. I try really hard. So.
Yeah, thanks, Annemarie. And look, I get a little bit less than that, but it's my job to definitely answer those questions regarding admissions and entry requirements. So please, I've put up my email address there for you. I think as we've gone over time just a little bit there, thank you very much, everyone, for your participation today. To Annemarie, Fiona, and Gerald from our academic team. Most importantly, though, to Jeff, thank you for taking time out from your studies. Good luck in the forthcoming exams and assessments that are coming up, Jeff. And to our audience today, thank you for your participation, your questions, very, very good. And we'll be forwarding, as I said, the video link.
I'll put that and the headphones on at the same time. I was going to put all my medical gear on for you, but I can't.
They haven't invented a mask yet with the earpiece.
I forgot about the earphones. Such an idiot. Good on you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everyone, and
Thanks,
hope
Jeff.
to see you soon in Australia. Bye-bye.